Gallia once again being taken out by the blue side, so no team willing to commit to a burst rotation on that side, and I kind of get it. Gallia has been seeing, while it still maintains a high success rate, a lot of teams are starting to get the hang of playing against Gallia. Oftentimes when the pick remains at the top of the meta without significant changes to it, teams start figuring out ways around it. Unlike maybe Zach, who is still super broken, or a Caitlyn, who once again is super broken and only falls to the hands of Zach. But now you have Lucian mids against Galio, you've got the Talia and Cassiopeia that can do fine. You've got people even trying out Acid into him, and then you have Corki to add to the pool. So there's a lot of ways to lane against Gallia. So taking it right away no longer guarantees you having that crazy pressure mid. It means that now you have to make it work, make it count with the jungle, make it count with your side lanes using that ultimate.
So the sign before it said, Shy, please play Jax. We want to see Shy on Jax this time around. And that sign must have said, Maha, please carry. I wasn't sure about the Korean name, but it had the Korean name and then please carry. So I assume that's Maha, as he is on camera right now. And the first pick, Shy, or rather the first pick, Sejuani, will go over to the ROX Tigers.
This pick has been rising in priority, and they might be feeling like they've got make glasses great again. Or are they not great? They provide vision for you. What is more important than having a sense of sight?
From Russia with love. I can't read the rest, but I'm sure it's a good message. He loves MVP.
Well, we already know what the message that ROX is sending with Sejuani being locked away, knowing that they're going to go for that composition of full-on team fighting. And this time around, I hope that they lock in a Kog'Maw early on. Sure, they're at the hands of a hard engage or a skirmish composition early from MVP, but it's going to get banned in the second rotation. Oh, they're going to lose a Kog'Maw. Okay, they're going to go
for the same front line.
Yeah, the salty run back, but come on. Triss to Cog. Look at Kog'Maw.
Pick it. If not the Kog'Maw, maybe the Twitch this time around. It was open in game number 1. They just decided to go with Tristana instead. So perhaps this is what they've practiced. This is what they feel like is the main composition for their team right now. Even though that might disappoint Crumbs a little bit.
Oh yeah, it definitely might be. It was the execution, right? It could have looked a lot better. It could have been a lot cleaner, especially had that Baron not come through. So there's many factors. It's just that this composition, the version that we have seen be so successful, often relies on Kog'Maw. And now they get rid of the Twitch just to make sure that maybe they're not thinking about going with a Twitch or possibly a Kog'Maw in the second rotation. I sure hope that both of those champions get banned, as it is quite likely that that is what they're going for. And when you now have a Corki who has to get himself a little bit closer than maybe the Talia to impact a team fight, you are putting yourself in a position to get assassinated right away from the Twitch, and that's not where you want to be as a mid laner.
Will we see the, let's count, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th 80 carry bans here?
With
That's
a lock
away,
yes. With a denial on the Corki. Yeah, there's a Kog'Maw ban as well. Oh, just give me Ashe. Don't give me Tristana again.
Yeah, should be interesting. We've seen other guys like Prey really carry hard on that champion later on in the game, even so. Even though the range is a little bit lower compared to the Tristana, has other utility and other steroids in her kit.
Or actually just you can do Triss, but get rid of the Karma. Because remember when Samsung ran this composition with the Braum and the Sejuani, it was with a Talia in the mid lane, right? The Jarvan was there with a Talia. So you had a carry in the mid that can offer another major CC threat, not all-inning onto one champion. When we see teams all-in into a champion, it's picks like Kog or Twitch that can just obliterate a team composition. And I think that MVP might have done ROX Tigers a favor here by making it very easy. Pick that Ashe, although you are susceptible to getting jumped on by Rek'Sai, Thresh, and Tristana. Oh, whoa.
Lucian could be in the mid lane against the Corki.
Oh, true.
But as you said, there's not many other choices. Still the Ashe available. Hey, there's always Sivir.
True, but when you're so short range, and now they've decided to walk away from the supports. Besides, while Lava has been
Israel,
an interesting play, he's better suited to these carry champions, right? They were able to beat KT. He was playing Corki. He was doing so much work. So putting him on Karma seems like a waste. To put a brand new player, an untested player, straight onto a supporting role isn't always the wise move. You want to give him enough room to shine if he decides to shine.
Look at Sangyu's face as they lock in the Jinx. You can tell he's like, I'm not so sure about this one, but this is basically all we got left. And another hyper carry, if she can get going, it definitely can be scary. It's kind of like, you know, 5th on the tier of hyper carries, but when you have so many banned and picked away, you got to go with something. Yeah,
Jinx is a monster in the late game. She has the AoE built in. She practically has a hurricane already. She's got legitimate crits, damage, steroids, and execution blow, and there is no Taric on the side of MVP this time around. And while they have Corki that can aid in a split pushing scenario, I've already discarded the idea that MVP is going to play a split push game. They're just going to keep team fighting over and over, and they just happen to like Jax. I think that's how we just call them. We think it's a split push comp. No, they just want to fight you, but they just like this pick. Just like how ADD liked his Scion all this time before. We're thinking, oh, what do they have around it? No, we're looking, we're reading too deep into it.
He just likes it.
He just loves it.
He plays it a lot. He feels good on the champion and doesn't play to its strengths. So, not sure if that's a good thing. Well, it kind of worked in some situations in Game 1, but there were definitely mistakes that the ROX Tigers made to allow that to happen. And so, I am agreeing with you here. I don't think we're going to see ADD doing a crazy split push against this Jarvan again. I think he's just going to be grouping up, MVP kind of hold up in their base. Just going for the big engages.
They've got a lot more engaged this time around with the Jarvan Orianna comp. Carrier now in Jarvan. If Shy wants to go that falls deep, you've got Orianna, and that will actually make it a sick engage.
An extra ball to add to the ones he's already got, I suppose.
Yes, and then you've got MVP, who have a similar composition to last time with the Jax, with the Thresh that can make some plays, but their engage will have to be a lot more thought out this time around, as they don't have nearly as many tanking tools as they did before.
Yep, definitely would have to agree. Jaximus is back as we jump into game number 2, MVP versus ROX. Let's jump onto the Rift. Well, MVP's winning in the tier. We'll see if they can actually make it back in game number 2 and force it to a game number 3. I know a lot of people out there are hoping, wishing for a game 3, especially after the way that game 1 went and how exciting and back and forth that was. Definitely adds a bit of excitement to a series that, you know, on paper you might look at it and be like, no SKT, what's this? But definitely was a very, very fun game of League of Legends. Would hope to see 3.
Yeah, if it was my birth and I was cutting the cake and somebody told me, make a wish, I'd be like, give me a game 3, Tigers MVP.
You could have any wish and you wish for game 3. It's admirable. Your passion for League of Legends. It's so obvious.
Surpasses logic.
Let's see the start here for Seungwon. It doesn't look like he's going Raptors. It's just going to start the red with the good leash. Whereas Beyond will go for the Raptors on the Rex side, of course.
Yeah, just go for the small ones. You leave the big one, the standard jungle route. And I got to say, I feel like a weight has been lifted off my shoulder upon realizing that MVP just plays Jax because they like it. It's not that it's a split push to them. Just discard the notion that every single team in the world except MVP tries to play Jax as a split pusher, and just witness it for what MVP's trying to do. They just like to play this champion. They finally locked into some picks, and you know, last split it was the Scion. This time it started out with Sejuani top, but then she fell out of flavor, and now we got some Jax on their hands. But at least for MVP, it gives us some hope that this Jax will continue to improve. It was an improvement from day one where they debuted it a couple of weeks ago. Or not that we saw it in Korea. It definitely improved in the team fighting. He was definitely playing significantly better in that. And at least they're locking down onto a certain set of champions. That can mean that improvement is imminent for MVP.
Like to hope so. Hold that thought. Beyond going for a level 3 gank here. Coming in behind Lava. The flash knock up, and that's a ton of burst damage coming out of Ian. One more auto will do it. First blood goes over to him. Sungwon not in a good position. Will get unburrowed upon. Forced to flash away. A good start for MVP.
A nice level 3 gank there from the Rek'Sai, utilizing the power of that champion to find the first blood. And what's big here is that flash and Ghost were burned for Lava, and that means that Rek'Sai can play some easy revisits onto the mid lane, which yields so much pressure to MVP now that this Corki has so much. And we're going to look at that gank right away. Super simple. Just watch how Ian plays. He plays it out so well. So the flash and burrow, you open up with your Gatling gun, get your damage and get your shred in, then you follow it up with the Boss Bomb right at the end. Perfectly timed, so Ian couldn't even flash out of that damage.
Good gank to start off for Beyond 2. They're going to make this work. ADD's coming in here alone. And Sungwon, I mean, he spotted him on a ward, but they're just going to let him go.
It's a Jax. He's difficult to jump onto when Jarvan has to tend to the wave. And it's just one of the other things that you get when you pick the Sejuani. You don't have enough kill pressure onto the Jax for him to respect you enough to back away. He just walks in front of your jungle, sees you, it's like, all right, I don't care, you can't kill me. And as the game progresses, it becomes tougher and tougher for this 2v2 combo, where normally every lane feels worried, oh, if the jungler is here, I might die. But when you're Jax and it's a Sejuani Jarvan, you'll only really die if you start trading like a maniac, get yourself low enough to where the point where a Soraka could gank you and you die.
You just got to play it a little bit safe, especially early on. Does pretty well in the lane, just going 1v1 with Jarvan. You just walk up to him, try not to get comboed, land your counter-strike. You can pretty safely lane. We've been seeing a bit of that up in the top lane, so ADD working pretty well on the Jax so far.
Especially when you see this Sejuani early on. He's like, all right, Jax it is. Maybe that's not the case, but whatever it is, he is playing Jax 2 games in a row.
It would just be funny if we could go talk to ADD and you're like, oh, it's so relieving to know that he's not playing the split push style. And you're like, ADD, what is your thoughts about Jax? And then he's just like, well, I love him because he's a strong split pusher. That's really our objective in the game. And we just sit there with our mouths open like, what the hell, man? Are you serious?
It's a nightmare at that point. You paint me that horrific story.
Beyond getting frisky, he's going to get stunned for it. Gets out alive, but takes a bunch of damage, and so was staying around, wanted that ward. You can see that Key was rotating up into the mid lane too, so Beyond gets out in time.
A lot of action around mid lane, so someone is just sacrificing his efforts to make sure that Beyond doesn't find another avenue onto the mid lane. Lava at least now has his Ghost up, and his Flash will follow shortly after, so just trying to make sure that your mid lane can survive, because when you're dealing with a lineup like the one that MVP has with no tanks, a late game shockwave that is as easy to deliver as it is when you have Jarvan can mean that you instant win a fight.
So Lava's doing okay for himself after that early death to Beyond. He didn't make his way back, as you were talking about, all the pressure taken away, so a lot of support out of his team to make sure that Lava can get back on his feet in the mid lane, get his summoners back. So that's working out so far. I was surprised to see that first kill happen so quickly. I mean, in game 1, we were talking about kind of why we weren't going to see too much action early on in the game, and I was expecting a similar start here. But still, we might not have much outside of that first blood, as it's both of these teams just trying to get to the late game.
A big part of it is dictated by what Beyond can offer. ADD is unlikely to find any place to make, and Max by himself might be able to get something going on for him, but Jinx can also push in a lane, which means that it's always possible for her to need a support to be there, and both supports just are relegated back to the bottom lane. No roaming, but we have another attempt onto mid that Beyond found.
No flashes yet. There's going to be the knockup, and even the Shockwave can't keep you alive. Beyond will pick up another kill for his team.
So clean. He dodges out of that Shockwave with his own ultimate. And I gotta say, at first, I was skeptical with the Rek'Sai changes. When it first got released, oh, it's so weird. What a different ability. It just looks wonky to use, but then buff after buff, fix after fix to make it an actual usable skill that just doesn't get dodged by taking a two-step to the left. And now we have an actual playmaking ultimate that just looks sick when they use it right.
Does a ton of damage, especially early and mid-game. So you need to flash if you want to dodge it. And in the first place, if you don't have flash against a Rek'Sai, you're going to wait. So you're kind of forced to eat that extra damage. And as you were saying, the extra buffs make it even stronger. And Rek'Sai is a huge pick on the red side specifically. And things going well this time for MVP. Good start, already 1,000 gold ahead. They're getting both the Rek'Sai and the Corki fed here.
And she also got indirect buffs with the buff to the Spammy Cinder. So now the build that was so previously questioned, oh, do you do Warriors, do you Cinder Hulk? Well, it's made easy for you now. You just do Cinder Hulk, and that's what we have. And under 9 minutes in, she's got that completed item, so she's already a force to be reckoned with. But at least for Lava, who seems to be the sole recipient of all this aggression, he has his flashback.
When you said under 9 minutes in, I was thinking about some crazy Final Fantasy speedrun. I'm like, wow, that's really fast. Under 9 minutes, killing Sin. You ever play that game?
Final Fantasy?
Yeah, Final Fantasy X.
I haven't played a single Final Fantasy in my life.
Oh, wow, really?
Yeah.
That's a pretty big series, man. You should play some of those. You should try them out. I know there's a lot of people that are favorites. They really like. Oh, okay, hold that thought. Okay, we'll talk about Final Fantasy in just a bit. We got 4 members of MVP down in the bot lane. Smartly, though, ROX is going to back off. And it looks like we may have some time to talk about Final Fantasy. So any thoughts about it?
I mean, I've seen people play it.
And?
Isn't it just like a...
It's just a single-player Japanese RPG.
Yeah.
It's just a really popular series.
Yeah, it's a JRPG.
Yeah, but it's really good. The storytelling is like immaculate. It's awesome.
You know, I don't want to be that guy.
I mean, but, if it's not your thing, I'm not gonna.
Yeah, it's not my
I'm not
thing.
gonna force you to play the game.
I just mean that I like real life storytelling.
Fair enough. I know you like to read your books.
I kind of prefer.
So not even books, just like real stories.
Yeah.
You know, meeting
like
real people.
Meeting real people and hearing their stories.
What about if it's a really good fake story?
That's okay, but
it's like a book, but you're playing it in a video game. So there's some challenge, some fun along the way, but it's like a really cool story with twists and interesting characters, stuff like that.
I'm not a weeb, all right? You can't convince me that easily.
I thought I had you there for a second.
Right.
Oh, that was close.
I smelled the agent, just
man.
Somebody just trying to infiltrate my fortress.
I almost got you there. I was trying to lure you in with the Final Fantasy. It didn't work out.
Yes. Start with sushi next time.
Okay.
We'll see.
I know you like
goes.
your fish, so maybe we can start with that one next time, perhaps.
And the lane sub had been initiated by the ROX Tigers. They're actually the ones that started this kind of charade there against KT, where they then started doing it themselves, but they just kind of leave lane to accelerate the pace of the game as they did lose that first brick. And I gotta think that they were well aware that this was gonna happen. Tristana, the demolitions expert, quite capable of taking down the tower in a wave or two.
Yeah. Don't get to see Ziggs anymore. No satchels being thrown onto towers, but you do get Trist doing something similar, at least. So, again, not too much action, just pushing those towers to make this game go a little bit faster. The Mountain Drake did get taken by MVP pretty easily. There wasn't really any contest by the Tigers. Just kind of let it go. Seems like maybe they didn't have too much vision around there. So already a good Dragon going over to MVP as well.
Yeah, especially when they swap. You have no duo lane there to defend you. Just kind of trying to understand why ROX Tigers went for this. They clearly just want to accelerate the pace of the game, but why? They're the team fighting comp.
Yeah. I mean, they do have that crazy hyper carry in the Jinx, but...
You have a super good setup when you have a Sejuani and 2 members under a tower. Like, she's great at tower dive. I mean, it could also mean that they just want to take a team fight. They just want to 5v5 already. They are safe taking a 5v5 at this stage, so they're just saying, you know what? Let's prime ourselves to find those opportunities more often now that the lanes have been reassigned. But MVP will match right away, and Beyond wisely taking down that turret. Oh, this is going to be a fight, but it's a gank.
Okay, ADD in a bit of trouble. Can't get away. Counter-Strike keeping him alive for a long time. He will jump, and the flash and the leap strike will get him to safety. Sejuani throwing that football wide. Will not pick up the kill.
That's how hard it is to gank that Jax. The engage was a bit bizarre, both trading their abilities opposite to each other, but in the end, MVP walk away with that Rift Herald, and with all the damage that they have already done to the mid lane tower, it's likely that it gets used here. And, oh, there it is. That's going to be the mid turret.
Yeah, Lava, he can't interrupt it. Look at the burst damage already from Ian, finishing the Trinity Force pre-14 minutes. Down goes the mid-tier 1, and MVP, they're the ones accelerating this game.
That's exactly what I think of any cockroaches that I see. They're just that evil.
They break down the turrets in your house? Is that what they do? Like,
they're basically met with enough force as if they were the actual Rift Herald.
You gotta exterminate them. I don't like the cockroaches either. Got a little rotation up into top again.
I just want to interrupt. I don't have cockroaches in my apartment. All right.
For anyone out there who,
it's you know, in the street. All right. You see them on the street. They're not in my room.
That's
not
true.
I want to say apartment, but it's a room. It's just a room.
They do call it one rooms for a reason.
Yeah.
Not really apartments.
Multi-purpose living facility.
Yeah. When Koreans refer to apartments, they mean real apartments that are in big buildings with multiple rooms. We live the one-room life, me and Crumbs. We just got our one room. That's it. The bathroom.
Listen,
there's a door, like there's a small...
You're underselling it. You're like, for example, what would you think of somebody who has the title of facility manager?
Facility manager?
Yeah.
That could be like a janitor,
exactly,
right?
Exactly. So you can hide it behind what we're saying. So we're just saying convenient it's an all-in-one place.
Yeah, it's just one room. It's got everything.
Don't call it one room. That's
living room, dining room,
it's
kitchen,
a Swiss army of rooms.
Bathroom, it's all in the same room.
It's a Swiss army of rooms.
I mean, I actually do enjoy it, the one-room life. It's very compact. You can live the simple life, the minimalistic life. You don't need too much to come to Korea. They have places called full option places where it comes with everything. Microwaves, even a TV sometimes.
Boy, that's what I think.
They have a bed.
Do you have everything? You've got a TV and a microwave? Oh, they've got everything here.
All the options available to you. So the ROX Tigers, they're going to try to make a play at the second Mountain Drake. They don't want to give 2 away to MVP, putting so much pressure on this, but look at Beyond coming from behind and the TP from the left side. Beyond actually isn't even going for the steal. He wanted to engage, but the team is not behind him. He is going to get knocked up. Big Glacial Fissure into the Shockwave. They should be able to pick up someone, and that they do. So they at least are able to trade a kill back.
And of course, if you're split pushing Jax, you've got red buff and you're in front of a tower. Do you fight or do you not? Wait, what? Did the tower go down?
A tower did go down somewhere.
Yeah, the tower went down. He just stuck to team fight. So you can expect ADD to go for the fight, but in the end, the retreating ROX Tigers was unable to find a good window. With the Shockwave, with the Sejuani ultimate, the counter-strike from Jax does so much to mitigate Jinx's damage, who, once again, unlike Tristana last time around, is just relying completely on their auto attacks.
It's going to be rough days for this Jinx before she hits 5-6 items. Even then, you got a decent engage comp this time with Thresh on the side of MVP. More engaged, less survivability. Let's take another look at this fight around the mountain tree.
So Unbreakable goes down right away, and while the turret is suffering enough damage from the minions, Rek'Sai goes in, gets blown right back away, but the Shockwave only finds the Jax, and he eventually just gets lanterned out. Because it was over the wall, so many of the carries from MVP were impervious to the AoE damage that the ROX Tigers pack. So in the end, the terrain benefited them, and that's a sign that right now ROX is not strong enough to take a fight if they're disjointed. They need to stay together. Cooldowns on the Dragon, that if their health is low, so they still have some more growing in their compositions before they can take a fight on similar terms, as they are already almost 4,000 gold behind.
It'll be interesting to see exactly what MVP do to try to get ahead even further. It seems like finally they're going for the 1-3-1 kind of split pushing composition that their comp says it should do, that they were reluctant to do before. Maybe it's just when they're behind they have a lot of trouble setting up the split push, but when they're ahead they can set it up a lot easier, and so they're kind of like, okay, we might as well do this.
But the split push is more than just the setup. It's gotta be Jax being so selfish with his play that his team is playing full defensive mode and he's just yielding all the advantages, right? So teleporting into that play, sure, it resulted in a net gain, but they lost a Dragon. So is it really that big of a plus? Not really, when you have the opportunity that Jax with a Sheen might have been able to stay topside and potentially take down a tier 2 tower because that person was about to go down. So it's a matter of thinking, well, if our composition is designed to have Jax as the sole point of pressure, then shouldn't we just have Jax be incredibly powerful? Oh, Shockwave!
What an engage from the ROX Tigers. Can they pick up any more? Beyond with the Unburrow on the run. Trying to dodge that stun, it's not going to happen. That's going to be 2 kills. Nice engage there from the side of ROX.
It's 10 seconds on Baron. They're just going to turn onto it right away, and it's going to be a 3-on-5 now. 2 ultimates, 3 ultimates wear down, but ROX can easily take a 5v3, tanking Baron this time around.
And ADD, instead of pushing a wave this time, he actually wants to go in and come in. They don't even have a smite. They want to actually take the 3v5. But what can they do? They're just going to poke, and that's it. And now Maha gets in range. He should be okay, but they're not getting any other objectives on the map while this is happening. They're just letting ROX roll right over them.
You can see the mini-map. That tier 2 is super low. Jax could have stuck on the wave and just given it up. A huge oversight there from MVP, but the Shockwave right on the Valkyrie. Just everything layered on top of it. You couldn't even lantern out of that one if you could, and the chase onto Beyond. They know that if they get that kill, that's a Baron. That's a Baron that they cannot contest on the side of ROX, so they get on the side of MVP, so they walk away with a huge Baron now. The gold, while it's still in the favor of MVP, does not illustrate the advantage that Tigers have now.
Yeah, and all that just to try to contest the blue buff. Sure, it would have been fantastic to take it away from Lava, you know, not have him have that poke potential around the Baron that was just spawning, but is it worth it when you lose 2 kills and the Baron? 2 deaths and the Baron? Definitely not. So being a little bit too risky was MVP. And you can't really afford to make those mistakes one after the other if you want to win these games, if you want to come back and force that game 3 that everybody's looking for.
Yeah, now the ROX Tigers are poised to take down potentially a tier 2 as the wave clear from MVP will find itself hindered at the hands of the Unbreakable, locking down so much of Corki's missiles, and here it comes once again. All right, Corki's back.
Nice poking going down so far. With this Baron, they're just gonna go back, touch the wave, bring it on in. You can see the pings. This is the idea right now, and they're just sending Shy to deal with ADD in the mid lane.
They have to remain patient. Here it is. Okay, it should go down on this wave. Now they'll rotate to mid, and now they'll shoot for that next tower.
Yeah, lots of objectives already picked up here for the ROX Tigers. And keep in mind, that's a third Mountain Drake that's coming up. So if they can pick that up, they're going to have insane objective potential later on in this game. And MVP's not even contesting it. That should be a second Mountain Drake going over to the ROX Tigers.
And ROX deciding if they want to use the Baron to push for the mid turret or the Dragon right now. This would be the wiser of the choices. It's still a mid-tier 1. Cracking down this tower at this stage would signify so much for the upcoming 20 minutes when it comes to dealing with a Baron siege. So they still have a quarter left on the Baron.
Max trying to land a death sentence. I haven't really been seeing him start up any fights on this Thresh comparatively to the Taric. His Taric looked really unbelievable. The timing on the Cosmic Brilliances was really stellar with the pack save here. But Max, so far, he's just been saving his teammates. I feel like his teammates are getting him into a position where they're getting out of position, so he has to be on lifeguard duty, essentially, instead of making the plays. And that's not really what Max is good for.
Look at how fast that tower died. That was 4 minions. That Jax can obliterate objectives. MVP needs to take this as a sign to be having Jax being the sole pressure point. And you're talking about Max, oh, he hasn't been able to find any engages. Well, it's just the fault of the Thresh pick. At this stage in the game, so late, remember that anytime that you use your hook, you're also stunning yourself. And with the huge front line and long-range carries of Orianna and Tristana, the chances of you actually hooking a target that you want to hook are slim to none. So he's stuck there just kind of playing Lantern duty, hoping that Maha and Ian do enough damage to part the seas of the carries of the tanks, and then find a way to hit the carries. Yeah,
and eventually Sungyun's going to have a QSS, so even if you do land the perfect hook, what is it going to matter? It immediately gets cleansed, and even though that Jinx doesn't have much of an escape with QSS, she should be totally fine unless she's totally out of position. By the way, we did have the second Mountain Drake go over to MVP because the Tigers, they wanted to push mid. They couldn't take it out on that push, and then they were forced to respond to the Jax. So, as you were saying, it all lies in the Jax. That's the secret here for MVP. They really need to make that work.
It's the secret sauce, but they're playing it like a Nart. Here's the teleport, but the disengage is out so far. It's going to be up to ADD.
Yeah, he committed here. They want a hook, and they're not going to get it. Here's ADD, 1v4. Can he lock someone down? We'll get lava, but that's about it. Forced to flash away. Beyond getting really low. Huge shockwave. That's going to take down Beyond. And Maha make that 2. A double kill going over to this Jinx. This hyper carry is getting fed. Max on the run. A jump in here from Shy. Big Cataclysm going to get both of them. The big knockup. Make that 4. They want the ace. They can't get it. But ROX with a huge push forward after a botched engage from MVP.
And it doesn't take a genius to figure out that if Jax is your engage, you're most likely not going to succeed for him. Now they're pushing in for inhibitor. It looks like they've got their sights set on more. That Jinx with the Jarvan flag can do a lot of damage to the Nexus towers. It's going to be close.
They're going for it. Ian alone. He's trying to clear those waves. Trying to poke at Sungwon in the front. He's tanking that turret. Here comes the respawn. Perhaps they bit off a bit more than they could chew. Now ROX on the run. Question is, do they get out alive? There's no other objectives for MVP to take, so definitely worth it in the end for the ROX Tigers.
And so worth it. Just hand it to him on the silver platter. Jax teleport gets exhausted before he even leaps in, and then you're poised with a microsecond choice of do you go in or do you not? So we're going to look at the engage right away, and Rek'Sai turns off immediately. Glacial Fissure gets popped, but they can't come in. You've got the ball to deal with. You've got Sejuani. And look, he immediately gets exhausted, and he has the choice of canceling the engage or going in. He goes in, but the huge shockwave from Lava, once again finding a carry in their escape move. First it was Ian on his Valkyrie, now it was Maha on his rocket jump, and his ability to use that skill has been winning so much of ROX's game.
Hashtag winning. That's the story here for ROX as they're trying to put themselves away. They're trying to separate themselves from MVP, saying we are the better team, we deserve the win. And to be honest, after watching the play from these 2 games, even though ROX, they made a couple of mistakes, they definitely do look like the much better team tonight.
They understand their composition. It's been execution problems, especially in game 1. Not so much here. but they truly understand how they have to play these comps out. Play together, disengage when necessary, and you don't have to go for tower dives. You just let your carries offer the pressure of damage. If you chunk a member out on the no-tank lineup, that is so valuable.
Look at the push they have with the static shiv. There's absolutely nothing that MVP can do. They're just going to roll over and die, it seems, at this point. They're so far behind. The push, the siege from this composition. Braum in the front, and Lava and Sangyun in the back.
They've got a package to threaten and engage, but ROX Tigers can't be too greedy with this one, because if they lose a fight here, we might see a deja vu of game 1 with Baron going over to MVP.
Oh, Ian, he does package. Unfortunately, they can't link up the Sejuani stun. Had they probably could have taken out Ian. It was pretty close. Not going to work out, but at least they get the package, which means that the push is continuing. Another useless death sentence. I mean, this Thresh pick has been hilarious this entire game. It's done pretty much nothing but lanterns. That's about it.
Cleanse was down from Ian, but Thresh is just like the Jax. We see the champions for what we've known them for, but MVP is just trying to give a new flavor to whatever these picks can do. The window for Thresh to be effective is no longer there. The hooks are not going to fly between Jarvan, Sejuani, and Braum. So all he has to do is just hope to flame maybe Jarvan.
That's going to be the play, but you can see Shy doesn't even have to engage. They can just sit there and say, okay, go ahead, you try to engage. We'll see what happens. I dare you. And so a second inhibitor goes down. The ROX Tigers, they're flying pretty fast right now. They're going straight for that Baron. We'll see if they actually do it. Okay, they're going to take the blasting plant. There we go. They're starting it. So
Orianna didn't make it over the wall, though. This might be a bit slower than expected. Beyond needs to try for a steal, so ROX Tigers recognize that this is not the time to go for this Baron. And MVP, with their base in shambles, the game in shambles at this point, they need a miracle. They could have either tried to force that Baron right away, which in my eyes would have been the only choice that they can make here. I think ROX is playing the objective game efficiently and well enough to not give themselves another window for a steal. And so the only move that MVP could have made to put ROX in a situation where they are not fully in control would have been to start that Baron, to maybe risk that 50-50. Because when you're down, when the chips are so far in your opposing team's control, you have to go for something. And that's when you rely on these opportunities of 50-50s, where typically is frowned upon, but they are necessary in situations like this, where everything that is conventional will not work.
Well, they will try to go for the somewhat conventional defense right now at the tower. Not much else they can do unless they're going to rush the Baron and lose their Nexus. So they're going to come over here, try to make a last stand. We'll see if ROX Tigers can close this out. They're going to send Jax up to the top lane to deal with that wave. But here comes the push.
It's definitely the last stand, as even Jax doesn't have a ward to teleport to.
Yeah, not much. There's the push beyond, lurking on the left side, but down goes another turret. Ian, he gets caught, and that's going to be the end of it. Nothing that they can do. ADD is going to be locked up. He can leap, but that's about all he can do. He will flash too. Maybe he'll survive. Nice shockwave here, trying to just get that KDA up as far as possible. They're going to turn back onto these inhibitors that they forgot about and try to end this game.
The game is certain to be theirs now. 30 seconds onto Corki. They can push for a victory here. It shouldn't be too hard, and that's what they're going for.
Yeah, they get Max here. That's going to do it. ADD, he's very tanky with that Counter-Strike, but that's about it. Going to be stunned up here. That's 2 members that go down 3 in total, as Corki is still dead.
Oh!
And beyond, he's going on an adventure. He's trying to leave the rift. See if he makes it out. Either way, that's going to be the easy 2-0 over here to the ROX Tigers. They do get this in the end. Well done to them.
In 31 minutes, they close out against MVP, and this time it looked great. Sure, they died early to some ganks, but they responded accordingly. They protected Lava. They put themselves in a situation where they can capitalize on the mistakes that MVP was presenting, and 2 shockwaves was all it took for this team to walk away in a swift victory with a 6-0-4 Jinx to top it off.
Jinx worked out. You know, how many bans did they spend at the end of it all? to try to ban out Songyun, trying to not allow him to carry. But in the end, I think it was mainly just his team doing the right thing at the right time and capitalizing on MVP's mistakes. As you put it, the 2 shockwaves to win ROX the game was essentially how it all went down the tube, that is, for MVP. So still the woes for this team will continue as they try to figure it out.
And oh boy, for this team, the Jax, it just cannot be played this way. It is going to be met with incredible opposition. A team that already the rest of the world is theory crafting. How can we deal with a split pushing Jax? So not only are people already kind of caught up on the answers, on the ways to deal with the Jax pick, but now they're not even playing it to that style. It's a different approach, and you know, you want to give them the credit for it, that they have learned and they have improved in their team fighting. That is the story that we can talk about MVP. Their team fighting has looked better. It has definitely surpassed the expectations that they had set for themselves in the first half of the split, but the overall direction that they take these compositions in needs a drastic overhaul.
Well, they don't have much time as we are here in, I believe it's the end of week 6. If I'm not mistaken, on this Sunday. So they're pretty much set to stay in the bottom. It was a nice escape by MVP, or rather by ADD. But the woes continue.
And so they're going for a team fight, and already it's in the favor of MVP this time around from the chaotic nature at which everything began with little mana and so many members on the ROX Tigers. But this is where it all went in. An invade on the blue buff with a fantastic shockwave out of lava that ends up giving over a 20-minute Baron to a team fighting composition. So the split push game gets nullified instantly. The team fighting gets enhanced exponentially. And ever since then, there is no turning back. And here's another botched engage with a good Glacial Fissure and an even better shockwave.
Yeah. Also want to highlight the Merc Treads on lava. That stun out of Jax didn't give him nearly enough time. I mean, it was a botched engage anyway, but a nice item there to make sure that he stays alive if he does get engaged by him. Does mitigate some of the damage out of Ian as well, but definitely made sure he stayed alive. And that's got to be a feel-good game for Lava. You know, one of these newer players that comes in and goes down 0-2 in the beginning of the game, gets focused down heavily by MVP, but then at the end of it all, carries his team to victory.
Trust in the composition, trust in the draft, trust in your team. And overall, they finally pulled it together, grouping up as 5 and utilizing the tools at their hand to walk away with an 11-3 tower victory. This was a one-sided affair from about the first Baron, so for 20 minutes actually. It wasn't that one-sided, what am I saying?
Corki did a crazy amount of damage. It's basically what Corki does, but it didn't matter. Jax did nothing. The Thresh was totally useless.
Well, come on, the damage onto Thresh. It's the team comps, right? If you can't get anything going on for you early, so much of the focus was around the mid lane, but there was just never any action in the bottom lane. And I gotta give credit to ROX Tigers on the swap. They did give up that first brick by swapping out the dual lane topside to perhaps nullify the potential of a Thresh gank coming through. And the Thresh, as you say, ended up being useless post-laning phase.
So guys, we're gonna throw it over to G-Sun with the translation.
Hi, this is Jason, your translator, and here's the interview. You are in the starting lineup after a while. How you feel? I was really nervous before the match. I've been a programmer for a while, but I took a long rest, so I was really nervous. Talking about your Jarvan, it was really you showed a lot of aggressive plays, but you didn't die in the team fight. What's your method? I think Jarvan has a lot of synergy with the tank items. So after the first match, I thought we can win, even though I just play aggressively, very offensively, opening team fights by myself. So in the late game, I kind of like made missed decisions, but I think it's fairly well with the items. Then what kind of shot calls did you guys have in the last team fight? So we're trying to be aware about their ults. We're trying to not to just dive into the enemies and try to in some decisions. Then whose decision was it to put a teleport on their nexus? I didn't really remember, but it was first Lava on the teleport, and then I followed him back. Then let's check out the MVP for the second set. Let's check out the VCR.
Well, let's see. I think Shai already told us, but it is Sangyun with the 100% kill contribution. I don't know if I can really agree with this one. I think Lava definitely was the playmaker. Sangyun was in the back doing AD things, but...
Oh, the composition built around you makes you shine.
Definitely true. Good follow-up engage there by Shai. A little bit more time to shine by himself. So we'll throw it back to Ji-sun.
So here you have Sangyun. So how you feel? Well, actually, I feel better about we're not in the danger of going to the promotion, so I'm really happy. So tell me about the Tristana pick. So I was working on Tristana recently, and our composition was really good with the Tristana, so I picked it. And then you picked Jinx in the last game. Well, I didn't have really thought in mind, just our coaching staff came in and told me to play Jinx, so I just put on Jinx on my screen, and then we had 3 seconds left, so we just locked in. So how do you feel about Sangyun's Tristana and Jinx? I think he played Jinx really well. The Orianna engagement was great. What kind of shot calls did you guys have? So we checked the visions about the enemies coming through, and I was sure that we're gonna win the front line fight. So I told him to use his ults a lot. So these days, AD carries plays are really important, and they have to carry a lot. Are you confident? Yes, he's definitely confident. And Shai says, yes, Sangyun is playing really well recently. And we're really trying a lot to cooperate. And last message for your fans, please. We really tried a lot to win today's match, and we will try and do our best for our upcoming matches. And this was the end of the interview. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Ji-sun, for the translation. Nice to hear from Shai and Sangyun. Sangyun definitely seems like a very charismatic guy, very talkative about what was going on in the games, which is just cool to see. Makes sense that they built comps around him.
He's got 400 MVP points, and I believe that is the highest MVP points for somebody in the standings at which they are at right now. 7th place, tied with the Jin Air Green Wings, and undoubtedly so. Now they have a big sigh of relief now that they have separated themselves. A couple of games away from BBQ and MVP gives them some hope to not face relegations.
Yeah, they're pretty happy with that, I suppose. They do get the win over MVP. Definitely does matter in the standings. MVP still having a lot of trouble. Not really what we wanted to see out of them. I was expecting a bit better of a game from them, but didn't quite work out.
Yeah, the surge of power coming back from Rift Rivals just wasn't enough. Just a bit of a spark that we saw in the composition. Still, they have issues that plague the team compositions, the way that they play throughout, but the team fighting has improved. So they are still getting better. However, it might not be at the rate at which the rest of the league is. As we saw earlier when the split begun, ROX Tigers were struggling a lot with Mickey. They get rid of Mickey, they add Lava, they got Shy back on the lineup, and now they're looking decent, they're looking good.
Yeah, they're getting better definitely for sure. But guys, we're going to take a quick break. As I say quick, that's about 55 minutes before we do get into KT Rolster versus Ever 8. Stay tuned.